Imagine you're a physicist. You spend your life studying the fundamental laws of the universe, and you end up in prison. Not for some high-stakes crime, but for forwarding posts on social media. Well, this isn't a hypothetical. This is the incredible true story of Dr. Chen Jingyuan, and it's a case that seriously makes you question the lines between law, science, and what we can say online. Okay, let's dive right in. Way back when, Galileo was forced by the authorities to deny that the Earth moved around the sun. But legend has it, under his breath, he muttered these defiant words, "And yet it moves." This is the perfect setup for what we're about to explore, that timeless clash between what an individual sees as true and what the official story is. It's a theme that you'll see echoes right through Dr. Chen's case.
So here's the bottom line. Dr. Chen Jinyuan, a physicist with a PhD, was arrested, put on trial, and sentenced to 1 year and 8 months in prison. His crime? Simply forwarding some posts on a social media platform. The court decided that simple act was a major threat to social order.
And get this, the specific charge was picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Now, what's fascinating is that this law was originally for, actual physical fights and public disturbances. But here's the twist. Its use has been stretched to cover things people say online, and that created this kind of legal gray zone that Dr. Chen got completely tangled up in. To really get what happened in this trial, we've got to put on our legal hats for a second. The prosecution couldn't just say Dr. Chen did something wrong. Nope. They had to prove 3 very specific things were all true at the same time. So let's break down the anatomy of this so-called crime. The law itself is actually pretty clear on this. It's not just about posting something you shouldn't. It's about making up and spreading false information. And that information has to cause a very real, very specific result: severe public disorder. The key thing to remember is that both of those things have to be proven. Not one or the other, both. So this is it. This was the legal mountain the prosecution had to climb. Their entire case rested on proving all 3 of these pillars beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the info was just plain false. Second, that Dr. Chen knew it was false when he hit share. And third, that his post actually physically caused severe public disorder. The whole fight was going to happen right here, on these 3 points. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the legal battleground itself. We're going to walk through this pillar by pillar and look at what the court said, and then at Dr. Chen's incredibly sharp scientific and even philosophical defense. First up, false information. The court's position was simple. He forwarded false info, end of story. But Dr. Chen's defense was surgical. He argued that you can't just slap a false label on things like art or an opinion or social commentary. I mean, is a satirical cartoon false? Is a political opinion false? These aren't facts you can prove or disprove in a lab. And here's the kicker. The prosecution never once provided any official paperwork or certification proving the content was false information. Okay, now for pillar number 2, knowing intent. The court actually used his PhD against him. Their logic was, hey, you're a highly educated guy, you should have known this stuff was false. But Dr. Chen just completely flipped that argument. First, he said that as a scholar, his whole mindset is built on skepticism. He doesn't claim to know absolute truths about messy social issues. And second, and this part is just brilliant, he argued that as a physicist studying complex systems, there was one thing he did know for sure, that his posts, from a tiny marginal account, were scientifically incapable of causing mass chaos. So how could he intend to cause something he knew was impossible? This brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial pillar: severe disorder. The court just flat out asserted this happened, but they never offered any proof. No pictures of riots, no reports of mass panic, nothing. Dr. Chen, again, brought his scientific mind to the defense. He argued that huge networks like social media are resilient. One small user like him just can't cause a total system meltdown. And then he delivered the ultimate reality check. The posts are still online today, and they haven't caused a single documented problem. And yet, despite all of this, despite the detailed logic, the scientific reasoning, and the complete lack of real-world evidence of disorder, the court's final ruling was that the evidence had formed a sufficient chain. In their eyes, the case was proven, and all of Dr. Chen's arguments were dismissed. Now, this is where the story gets way bigger than just one man's trial. The analysis of this case frames it as a modern chapter in a very, very old story: the conflict between people who ask questions and the institutions that hold power.
This commentary, written in the style of Giordano Bruno, a philosopher who was actually executed for his scientific ideas, just captures this tension perfectly. It says that when authority can't be questioned, it's like a black hole that just sucks in the light and destroys any spark of creativity. It puts Dr. Chen's case in that same dark tradition. And this one, in the style of Einstein, really hammers the point home. It links the trial to the very heart of science, which is all about questioning, doubting, and challenging what you're told. The argument is that progress itself depends on resisting that kind of blind obedience. So, why bring up all this history? Because it shows this isn't just a story about one weird law in one place. It's a story about a fundamental human struggle that's been playing out for centuries. The fight between the freedom to think and share ideas and the power of institutions to control what everyone believes. So, we've seen the arguments, we've seen the big picture historical context. Now let's get to the end of the road. What was the final verdict? And maybe more importantly, what happened next? The final verdict from the appellate court was short and brutal. Appeal dismissed, original judgment sustained. And just like that, the legal battle was over. The sentence was final. And this right here is the heart of the whole contradiction. It's just wild. On one hand, you have the legal finding, a reality created inside a courtroom, which says his posts caused chaos. And on the other hand, you have, well, actual reality. The simple, observable fact that after he got out, those same posts were still online and caused zero problems. 0. That's the number. After all the arguments, all the scientific theories, and a year and 8 months in prison, this is the final data point. The severe public disorder that was the entire basis for his conviction, it just never happened. So where does this all leave us? The case of Dr. Chen forces us to ask a really profound question. It's not just about his guilt or innocence anymore, but about the very purpose of law itself. The entire analysis of this case really boils down to this one powerful, unsettling question. If a legal system comes up with a verdict that is completely contradicted by observable reality, then what is its purpose? It's a heavy thought, and it challenges us to think really hard about the relationship between justice, truth, and power, leaving us with a lot to chew on long after this is over.